Hello fun people, I'm Isaac Carlson, and today I want to break down whether or not Abuelo Pedro could be alive. His sacrificial death took place just before Casita came to life, so maybe he's a part of the magic. What if he's Casita? When the cracks started to come, Mirabel stared into Abuelo Pedro's picture, almost like he was trying to speak to her. And when Casita falls into ruins, Pedro's picture falls as well, which could all be pointing to the fact that Pedro's soul lived and died within the Madrigal's home. Could Pedro fit into any of his family's magic, or is he truly gone? And of course, if you're new here and you'd like to stay up to date with all of my magical videos, consider subscribing. Now, I think this popular question around whether or not Pedro is the Casita creates the space to discuss what happened to Abuelo Pedro and explore his role in the creation of his family's Encanto. Now, initially, we can really only identify two main magical entities in the Madrigal's lives, the miracle itself and Casita. Now, when it comes to the miracle's magic, it's some type of entity that's made decisions about who is granted a miracle, the borders of the Encanto, whether or not a Madrigal receives a gift, and what gifts will be bestowed. At the same time, there's also the being that's Casita, who the Madrigals play with, confide in, and are protected by. And these two forces are definitely not the same. When Mirabel was preparing to save the miracle, Casita was clueless as to how that could be done. The Casita was locked within the rules that it was existing within, which is why it couldn't enter Bruno's room or stop the cracks from coming. Casita was a humble servant of the Madrigals, but it did not have the full scope of knowledge or power like the miracle itself had. Casita was out of the loop on what the miracle was doing. It was empowered and derived by magic, but it was constructed as a separate entity to the miracle itself, which makes it seem like Casita could be Pedro, since Casita was a member of the family.
Yes, Casita, we're going.
Now, Abuela and Mirabel are accustomed to accepting Casita's help. They grew up depending on, speaking to, and befriending Casita, but they definitely don't act like Pedro is Casita. Like when Abuela is calling for her husband's help, she explains to him that Casita is in trouble, showing she doesn't believe he is the house.
Cracks in our Casita. We cannot lose our home again.
And when Mirabel wakes up at the beginning of Encanto, she says good morning to Abuelo Pedro and talks to Casita, again showing that everyone treats them as two distinct entities. I think if Abuela thought for a second Casita had the spirit of her late husband, she would only call Casita her Pedro. And I feel like after 50 years of being in the house, if Pedro's soul would have been within it, he would absolutely have found a way to reveal who he was to his wife. Maybe just his essence existed in the personality of Casita, but I don't know. I kind of feel like it would be torture to serve your family endlessly after being ripped away from them, especially if they had no clue who you are. I don't know if that really sounds like a desired fate, especially since the Madrigals fell apart and it all led to Casita falling. I feel like Pedro embodying Casita would be a terribly draining existence, and I think it doesn't really make sense, especially since we know Abuela feels Pedro's presence in some other way.
I asked my Pedro for help. He sent me you.
Abuela knows he's still somewhere making an impact in his family's lives. Now, one interpretation I've seen that explains the reason Abuela could recognize Pedro was because Mirabel was a reincarnation of Pedro. I mean, Mirabel's entire heart is dedicated to her family to the point where she's willing to sacrifice her life to keep the Madrigals going, just like Pedro. But I don't really like that idea very much because I think it weakens the bond between Alma and Pedro as well as Alma and Mirabel. I just don't find it very satisfying to think that Pedro's spiritual return to the world would result in Alma pushing him away, and there are numerous comparisons between Mirabel and Alma that show that they are connected. I mean, I made a whole video about why Mirabel doesn't receive a gift and what I think her future will hold, and I wholeheartedly think the bond between Abuela and Mirabel is foretelling that Mirabel is rising as the new leader of the family. So there's no need to have Mirabel's origins deeply connected to Pedro. Maybe instead, Pedro is the being that is in full control of the family's magical miracle. Now, that thought is interesting because Mirabel actually acknowledges it was Abuela's unconditional love that saved their family and brought about their miracle initially.
We were saved because of you. We are a family because of
you.
We also know that it was Alma's desire to preserve her family's home, magic, and power that led her to lose sight of her unconditional love. And I previously even explained in a video focusing on Abuela's magical gift that she was the one who was unknowingly shaping the rules that governed their magic. Casita and the miracle itself only would persist if the Madrigals continued to remain a stable, loving family, but a lot of the miracle's magic is based around Abuela Alma's actions. It seems like Pedro made the ultimate sacrifice, but Alma ensured that the miracle came to be. But I don't think she was doing everything on her own. You see, we find out through the bonus feature Our Casita on Disney Plus that the Encanto was created because of a simple prayer. We also know that Alma and Pedro were religious people who were married by a priest and supported their church in the Encanto. So maybe Pedro didn't bind with the magic of his family. Maybe he wasn't reincarnated or was completely obliterated from the world. Maybe Pedro was his wife's guardian angel. After Pedro died, I think he was responsible for ensuring that Alma's prayers were heard. He was the one watching over them from afar and keeping them on track to stay together. Maybe Pedro's death gave him the ability to ensure his family could find peace. But fun people, what do you think? Do you believe Pedro is Casita? Is he in control of the miracle? Or do you agree with me that he's an angel? Let me know in the comments or over on our Imaginative Discord server. And a big thank you goes out to all of the producers who support everything I do over on Patreon. Supporting over there is helping me establish a team to make my videos and allows me to start new projects like a Disney travel agency. More on that soon. The producer community gives me feedback on the channel and my ideas, and I'm incredibly grateful for all of their input and support. If you have ever gotten some joy from my videos and you want to be a part of what I do here, consider checking out the link to my Patreon page down below. Thank you so much for watching and have a magical day.